Hello. I don't really have that much to update you on this week. It's been hot and humid, and I haven't really done much except complain about that. I had to do some work as well, but I complained about it while I was working. That is multitasking. So it hasn't really been weaving weather. I have done a little bit of weaving, which I'll show you in a second, and I've done quite a lot of sewing because I've got a fan that you can point at your face, turn it on full blast, and it's quite nice. So sewing is tolerable. It's enjoyable. I'm enjoying the sewing. Weaving has just not felt like something that I have wanted to do with this heat and humidity. But I will talk about what's on the loom in a second. But what's off the loom and wet finished and pressed, because I'm setting impossible standards to maintain, is this. Now, this was the skipped dent. It still is the skipped dent, but the skipped dent has given me zero texture. I have not had any luck lately with skipped dent. Doesn't mean I'm going to try. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying it, because you never know when it might work. And it has worked for me in the past. But in this particular instance, it's given me no texture. But this yarn has done something really interesting in the wet finish. So I'm excited about this anyway. It has got visual interest, even though the skipped dent didn't work. So as you might be able to see, it's developed this sort of wavy gap pattern, which looks like I've been very clever and looks like I've used maybe even a wavy shuttle or something like that, which I didn't. What has happened here is that it is a loose weave which has shifted in the wet finish. So while it was being wet finished, all of the yarn shifted and settled and formed these really rather good wave patterns. So the reason it was a loose weave was to try and avoid what has actually happened, but I'm not mad about it because of the gaps. Let me see if I can find you a good example on here. So, because this yarn is so fine, that's a good example. Let me just hold it in a way that's going to show on camera. No, step a bit forward. There we go. There's still some, like, scrap timber down here, which I keep meaning to move because every time I come out here, I half fall off it. And I will move it one day. Anyway, this is what I was trying to avoid, which is here where you can see all of the weft, but you can't see any of the warp. So you can see the side-to-side threads, but you can't see the up and down threads. So it was quite a loose weave, because that is called a weft-faced weave. Too many W's. And that just means that you can see the weft, but not the warp. So it was quite an open weave to try and avoid that and to try and show some of the colours, etc., in the warp. So you can see that in the gaps there. So I'm not mad about it. And I'm really, really interested in how it's just made itself into these little waves and turned itself into this kind of lacy pattern. So on the little loom, I'm still not using the big loom because the sewing table is full, which I'll talk about in a second. On the little loom, I do have a project I was talking about last week, and I will show you that right now. Here is my tiny little bit of weaving for the week. It's quite fresh on the loom. There's my hem stitching, but it has been on the loom for about a week, and I really should have got further than I have. It just hasn't been weaving weather. This is the 70s kitchen scarf, and you can see why I have called it that. So this is the brown, and we've got the orange. So the brown is heirloom 8-ply, I think. It's Merino Magic. I think this colourway is probably called Mission Brown. If it isn't, it should be. And then for the orange, this is Carrot. It's by Bendigo Woolen Mills, and I think the yarn is actually called Viva or Vivo or V something. This is the colourway Carrot, though. I think it's discontinued. It's a very loosely spun, barely spun sort of a yarn, so I have been hanging on to it. It was sent to me as a gift by my cousin. I've been hanging on to it to wait until the perfect project presented itself. Oh, that was a lot of alliteration there. And then I thought this might work, and it is. So this is really just me testing to see if it works. I've got this on the long shuttle, on one of my long shuttles. I have two, don't mean to brag. The reason being I want to minimise the amount of joins in the orange, because it's quite obvious. You can see here where I've woven in that first tail. It's really obvious where that is. So I want to try and minimise that throughout the weave, and hopefully I might even get to the end without having to reload the shuttle at all, but we'll see how I get on. It doesn't matter with the brown, because if I have to do any joins in the brown, it's not going to show up. So this is a pick-up stick pattern. So there's a pick-up stick in the back of the loom that isn't a pick-up stick. It's actually just a spare shuttle, because I don't have a pick-up stick for this sized loom. I only have the ones that are the same length as this shuttle, and that is just really, really overcomplicating it for myself. So I'm just using a wide shuttle as the pick-up stick. And that is 2 rows of plain weave, and then 1 row with the pick-up stick from whichever direction I happen to be on. So normally these would be done in little pairs. I'm doing them singles just for a bit of variation and to be a bit different and exciting and fresh. On the other side, it's not that interesting, because all that's happening on the other side is that these, see these lines here, so this thread here on the warp, That's just orange dots on the other side. So the other side is more subdued. So if you want to have a more subdued mood in your 70s kitchen, you can flip the scarf over. If you want to be really bold and really 70s with your kitchen situation, you can show this side. I mean, all that's assuming it ever comes off the loom. If we don't get a break in the weather, this will be coming off the loom in about March. Now, I have been talking at some length about the need to clear my table, and to do that I need to sew quite a lot of Moores bags that I have cut out and pressed and are ready to sew. And they are sitting on the table and I don't have anywhere else to put them, so I need to sew them so that I can pass them on and clear the space. Because I'm making a dress. I am making a dress. I've got a sewing machine, I've got a pattern, and I've got the fabric. At some point in my future, I'm going to make that dress. It's going to be a surprise to all of us when that happens. So the logical thing to do would be to sit down and sew all of the Moores bags that I already had cut out and pressed and ready to sew. What I have actually done is cut out a whole heap more, which you are looking at now. This is the side profile of a big pile of Moores bags ready to sew. So why would I sabotage myself in such a way? First of all, I'm not very good at clearing tables at the best of times. And secondly, a friend of mine dropped off terrific fabric for Moores bags. This is upholstery fabric, and I've got a lot of it, most of which has been cut and is ready. There's still some more to go. So this is like heavyweight fabric. It's perfect for shopping bags. You can put so many tins of dog food in this bag and it will hold the weight, no problems at all. This is not all the ones I've sewn. I've just brought out a select sample. So this is another one that came off the machine today. Look at that, nice canvas backing, which I'm showing you so well. Hang on, let me do that. There we go. So that's another canvas one, nice sturdy bag. And this one is exquisite, and I've got a lot of this fabric. Look at that. Isn't that stunning? Now this is actually shiny. I think it's meant to be for covering cushions. It's shiny and it's soft and it's a little bit plush, and it has upset my sewing machine considerably. So that's a good thick canvas backing as well. So these bags are really, really sturdy. So I'm going to hang these two up because I want to talk about how I nearly killed my sewing machine. Now I have a Singer heavy duty, so I know that it's not actually going to break, but I did think that I had broken it. So the way these bags are constructed is, yes, if you pay attention, I'll tell you, the chickens are having opinions. So this top seam, or this top edge, is folded over and the handles are slipped in underneath it before it's sewn down. And then you take those handles, which are pointing inwards, and you fold them up so that when you sew the top seam, show you from the front would probably be easier. So when you sew that top seam, you catch the handle in that top seam. So the handle is actually, there's one layer of handle inside that seam and then one layer, out of the way, outside the seam. And this is approximately 10 layers of fabric at this point. At this little point here where the handle is on the top seam, that's 10 layers of fabric. Ordinarily that doesn't matter. I think it is 10 layers because we've got, the handles are double layers, so that's 4 layers, yeah, it's about 10 layers of fabric, 10 to 12, because this overlap here has 2 layers in it as well, because the handles have an overlap, you see? I don't know if you can see, you see, there's the overlap. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I've broken several needles. Worth it, and they're only cheap needles. They're just cheap ones I got off eBay. They're not like the top quality needles. I'm using my big chonky needles, and it's not happy. But at one point I did think that I had broken my machine. Now it's a heavy duty machine, so it should be okay. If it does continue to sulk with these, what I will do is bring out my mother's 1968 Elna, which I learned to sew on, and that thing will sew wood. That'll sew anything that you can throw at it. So it will gladly go through 10 to 12 layers of fabric. Alternatively, when I cut out more of these bags, because I have more of this fabric, I might cut out a thinner fabric for the handles just to make it all a little bit easier to sew. Ordinarily, this is not a problem. It's thick at that point, but it's not usually a problem because the fabric is usually a little bit thinner. The machine doesn't have any issues. The needles don't tend to break, even my thinner needles. This fabric has been a challenge, but it has been worth it. So I have a lot more of this fabric to use up. I've got some more of the hoops. I don't think I have any more stripes. And I'm also sewing some other fabrics that I haven't shown you, and some of the ones that I had already cut out and pressed and were ready to sew. And that is what I am going back to do right now. I'm going to turn the fan on because it is getting sticky today. I'm going to turn the fan on and get some bags sewn. So that is all I have for you this week. You take care of yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.